Germany 2006 was a World Cup for the history books, not only because of Zidane's iconic headbutt in the nail-biting final that was decided by penalties, but also because a country that didn't exist took part. What does El Mapa de Sebas say? A country that didn't exist? Just as you heard, a non-existent country was part of Group C in the preliminary round. Do you know which one it is without Googling? Serbia and Montenegro qualified in 2005. Montenegro officially declared its independence on June 3, 2006, and the World Cup started 6 days later on June 9. Good thing Serbia and Montenegro lost all 3 of their matches. Imagine if they'd won the World Cup. How could a team without a flag or anthem lift the trophy? There's no doubt that the World Cup is the most important sporting event on the planet, and that soccer is a fundamental part of contemporary global culture. I don't consider myself the biggest fan of all, but I recognize that it's an event where bonds of brotherhood between countries are strengthened in a healthy way, and it also encourages positive things like sports. And honestly, I would have loved to make a video with more fun facts like the one about Serbia and Montenegro. But as I've mentioned in previous videos, I've caught the critical thinking bug. Unfortunately, today I bring a topic that's less fun and more uncomfortable, but I think it's something we need to analyze. Like everything. When it becomes so absurdly widespread, the World Cup turns more and more into a nest of corruption, where geopolitical and economic interests come together. So, in today's video, we'll first look at the major FIFA scandals that have taken on massive proportions, especially since the 2010s. And second, what are the shadiest elements of the current World Cup in Mexico, the United States, and Canada? Are you interested? Then stay till the end of the video. On May 27, 2015, the United States justice system dropped the biggest bomb in the history of sports. Swiss agents, acting at the request of the FBI, arrested 7 top FIFA officials. Hours later, the United States Department of Justice unsealed a 47-count indictment against 14 people. Among them were 2 FIFA vice presidents, the presidents of CONCACAF and CONMEBOL, and sports marketing executives. This scheme had been going on for more than 20 years. The accused had been participating in a systematic scheme of bribes and illegal commissions that exceeded $150 million. What did the bribers gain? In exchange for granting broadcasting rights and sponsorships for tournaments like the Copa America or the Gold Cup, the United States Attorney General's office described it as rampant, systematic, and deeply rooted corruption. Suiza. The scandal was so massive that the then president of FIFA, Joseph Blatter, had to resign. And even so, he wasn't charged until 6 years later by the Swiss authorities. After an interim period, the current president, Gianni Infantino, was elected, who promised to restore FIFA's reputation. The big problem is that the power structures that allowed corruption haven't been dismantled. And we'll talk more about that in detail in a little while. Another major contemporary scandal happened in December 2010. The whole world was shocked when the FIFA Nenisaria, the 20 committee awarded the 2022 World Cup to Qatar, a country with no soccer tradition and lacking the necessary infrastructure. After years of journalistic investigation, what was obvious was confirmed. The hosting rights had been bought after the country paid millions in bribes to influence the votes of the officials. But the saddest part of the so-called Qatargate case was not the new corruption scandal, but its deadly consequences. By agreeing to become the host of the World Cup without having the necessary infrastructure, Qatar was forced to build it in record time. This led to a massive influx of workers from poor countries such as India, Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Sri Lanka for the construction of stadiums, roads, hotels, and metro lines, all under extreme heat of up to 45 degrees Celsius. While the FIFA committee acknowledged around 40 deaths and the Qatari World Cup delegation admitted to about 400, an independent investigation by The Guardian revealed
that 6,500 migrant workers have died in Qatar since the World Cup was announced.
If this figure is accurate, am I the only one who is shocked that there are more deaths due to the whim of a petro-monarchy than in recent wars like the one in Iran or the one in Nagorno-Karabakh? Going back to the topic of Gianni Infantino and his close relationship with President Donald Trump, you don't expect me not to be suspicious, do you? I think that believing the United States' legal offensive against FIFA in 2015 was an act in the name of honesty. And transparency is, at the very least, naive. By weakening the corrupt leadership and sowing chaos, a power vacuum was created that would later be filled by their allies. Right after that, the joint bid by the three North American countries was put forward in 2017 during Trump's first term, by the way. Anything? It wasn't without controversy. Even though the United States is a country with a baseball or basketball tradition and not so much soccer, they don't even call it football. The first superpower couldn't stay out of such a major event as soccer, right? And Henry Kissinger sure knew it. The famous Secretary of State. One of the main architects of United States foreign policy during the Cold War promoted soccer when the sport was basically irrelevant in the United States. In 1978, Kissinger became the honorary president of the North American Soccer League, the league that would have attracted stars like Pelé and Johan Cruyff. Since that decade, soccer in the United States has experienced exponential growth. It hosted its first World Cup. American investment in European clubs became widespread, and since then, the statistics speak for themselves. Returning to the present, something that caught my attention was the creation of the FIFA Peace Award in 2005. The winner, Donald Trump. And Infantino's justification for creating this award, his actions for peace in Gaza and in Ukraine, which, by the way, is still at war, and 3 Doritos later.
A civilization will die tonight, never to be reborn again. God bless the people of Iran.
And well, okay, to try to be balanced with the suspicions, it's understandable that thanks to its tremendous economic capacity and infrastructure, the United States is a good candidate to host the World Cup. It makes the other 2 host countries seem like they're just for show, which is pretty obvious and understandable. However, this does not exempt them from criticism, especially due to the abuses they've committed against World Cup participants. Omar Al-Artan, considered the best referee in Africa, was questioned and expelled from the United States for allegedly having ties to terrorism. Something that fits perfectly with the Christian love that President Trump has for his Somali neighbors. There, Ahmed Hussein, the star forward of the Iraq national team, almost suffered the same fate after being questioned for 7 hours upon his arrival at Chicago airport. What? Wasn't inventing the weapons of mass destruction excuse enough to invade and wreck Iraq? The teams from Senegal and Uzbekistan faced strict security checks upon arriving in the country, something that several sports commentators described as unprecedented, questioning why they would pose a threat to the safety of World Cup participants. That's how precise Temene is. And of course, this news couldn't be left out.
The Iranian team will never be able to sleep in the United States. After playing, they will have to go to Mexico.
The Iranian team, which plays its 3 group stage matches in the United States, will not be able to sleep in the United States itself, so they have chosen the Mexican city of Tijuana as their base. Imagine having to take round-trip flights every day during the most important competition of your life. Because of things like this, we can no longer say that soccer is separate from politics. And unfortunately, now it seems it's not separate from economic ambition either.
The prices of World Cup tickets force fans to cut back on everything else.
One of the reasons why soccer became the world's most popular sport is because of its accessibility. Unlike other sports like tennis or fencing, where you need infrastructure, with soccer, all you need is a ball and an empty lot to play. The dream of billions of fans around the world is to one day watch a World Cup match, which, if things continue this way, will be impossible for the vast. In the United States, 94 tickets for the final were around $460. And for the United States in 1996, more than $10,000 for a VIP package, with which in the 90s you could buy a house. I know, not to go too far, in Qatar, which was already the most expensive World Cup in history until 2022. The ticket to the final was about $2,200. The problem with this is that ticket prices have been increasing World Cup after World Cup. So apparently FIFA is turning soccer from the sport of the masses into the sport of the elites. And I repeat, this criticism is not directed at soccer or World Cup fever. On the contrary, I think it's a celebration with many positive aspects. My criticism is that the elites, besides turning this sport into a hotbed of the most blatant corruption, have even caused us tragic, deadly consequences. They have turned a collective passion into a commodity to enrich themselves in an absurd way. Steve, this is not something exclusive to sports, but it tends to happen to everything that becomes widespread. Maradona said at the time that the ball doesn't get stained, alluding to the fact that soccer is a beautiful sport that shouldn't be blamed for the mistakes of those who play it or manage it. But the elites really do everything they can to stain the ball. But now tell me, what do you think about FIFA? Do the corruption and commercialization of everything that becomes popular also make you wonder? Remember to comment. See you next time. Thanks.